full of hope and determination. The first founders have set foot on the Red Planet.
Hey, g'day and welcome to another episode of Surviving Mars. In the last couple of episodes we've just set up, we've done first 2 rocket landings. We've put a sustainable planet together. In regards to, when I say the sustainable, we've been able to run our power. Although the power is a little bit light at the moment, it's just because we don't have the sun. Producing the oxygen through our moxies, and also grabbing our water as well. Now even the water surplus is 0, our stored, and if we click on our water we can actually see that it's not producing due to lack of demand, but it can produce 2 more if needed. The next things we need to do is, because we've brought the second thing, is we need to start on our dome, and then at the same time in this game what we also need to do is look for fuel. Where we go on our fuel there. So there's our fuel refinery. So we want to actually do the fuel refinery so we can start setting the ships back. But more importantly, this one is about setting up the dome. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Now the dome's going to take a little bit to go. So what I am going to do is I'm going to start with the fuel refinery first. This will also take a little bit of the extraction and what of the water. And what we've also seen is, let me just turn that music down just a fraction while we're going in the game. What we've also see is once we do this, it will actually create another, I guess, demand for water products. So we'll be able to check it as well. Now, because we've actually laid out our pipeline and our power underneath our pipeline, this should allow us to literally just drop it once without actually connecting any more power, and that will actually run through with fuel. Now we've already dropped a fuel depot here, so it's a very short trip for them to drop off the fuel and then at the same time start reloading those ships. So fully reload one ship. You can prioritize one if you would like, or it will just slowly actually do those resources. Okay, so let's start working on the dome. Now what I have noticed, we're good here, everything is within the dome, and as the dome itself, we were trying to get these 2 metals to make sure that we can start doing some polymers, and also, just start the first lot of our production. Now I've built a few domes in the past, and I've sort of had some fail, and I think what I've failed at is in the early days, I've tried to put too much in regards to schooling and other activities as well. So we're going to start off with an easy one. The first thing you need to do is drop your accommodation. At this stage in the game, you've probably only got 1 level of accommodation. We'll just go back to that, which is the living quarters. So the home, education and research is the first box after your dome selection. So let's just grab our living quarters and drop them in there, and they'll start working on the living quarters. The next thing we need to do is we need to have some sort of food source, and this can be done a couple of ways. It can be done through, in this case here, the food source is in life support. I get caught out by this every time. I've seen 3 types of food sources. It's the hydroponic farm, which you automatically get, the farms that come through a research, and also a fungi farm that comes through research as well. Now with the fungi farm, I personally like it. It does take a little bit of water, but it sits outside your dome. So what it allows you to do is just have a few more spaces within your dome. But we have not researched the fungi farms as yet, and we don't even have the ability for doing the fungi farms. So we'll keep those going. So what we're going to do is we're going to place down, the first thing we're going to place down is a hydroponics farm, and we're just going to, it's a 3 cube, we're just going to place that down in the corner. There's really no difference where that actually goes. But more importantly, we need to be able to, the farm itself doesn't distribute the food. So what you do need to have, I understand, in every dome is you need to have some form of distribution, and this is done through a grocers. So your grocer itself distributes the hot meals, fresh produce, and creates food and shopping. It does have 3 shifts with 1 worker per shift. So depending on how you actually do your shifts, this is probably a good time to talk about the shifts as well. So with each of your, I guess, stores or your factories, there is potentially 3 shifts. Now when I say potentially, because there are some facilities that work on a single shift feature, and I think maybe the fungi farm, but I would just need to load one to actually have a look. Most have 3 shifts, so 1 work shift and the same, and you can determine how you run those shifts. Now if you put people on night shift, it does reduce their sanity, so be prepared that you may only want to work to start off with on 2 shifts, just to sort of help with the I guess the growth there, or help with maintaining
Research complete.
some level in your site. Now looking at your other things that are probably worth it, you've got a space bar which is absolutely huge. So let's go through the spaces. That takes up a whole thing, and I don't see it as important in the early days. A diner, so diner will actually produce obviously the food, and it serves the dining and the food, but what it also does is it has a social, so it does actually bring the comfort level up to 60. And you'll see now that we've got a dome, as though that we don't have people here yet, you've got a couple of extra bars, which is comfort level and also the morale. Moving along, we've got an infirmary, and I find that I always do put an infirmary down for the first one. Once again, it's a 3 square pick, and so I'll do the infirmary, which will have the medical facilities for people that need to sort of go and do the medical facilities, and this is leaving 1 square left, and we'll come to that in a minute. Open air gym, once again, it's a large, takes up a full triangle. I have used it before, but I don't think it's essential in your first dome. You can definitely put it in there, the choice is definitely yourself, but remembering you're limited now. I've got four triangle spaces left, so I need to make use of those. Casino complex, once again, takes up the full. I would probably save that for medium or larger domes. Your security station, now your security stations will, as I said, reduce sanity loss from disasters within the dome itself. Now security station just takes up 3. Once again, I have used it, but I don't think it's a priority at the beginning. I would wait until you maybe have your second or a larger dome. Grocers, we already talked about. Art and electronics, once again, these are 3 squares, and these will improve comfort as well as reduce sanity losses for certain things. So your art workshop consumes
Sector scanned. Anomaly found.
polymers. So just make sure if you want to put artwork that you have a sustainable ability to produce polymers. Remembering your batteries at this stage also take polymers as part of I think they do. Let me just double check on that. Yes, they do. They take polymers as part of your maintenance. So don't throw a lot of art galleries down or art workshops, because obviously if you run out of polymers, that means then your batteries will stop being charged, and then potentially you'll also lose power to your dome itself. And the last thing that we have is your electronics store, which services shopping and gaming. And if you have nerds as part of your citizens, the electronics store will obviously help them and keep their sanity, but it does consume electronics. So once again, it may be something you want to drop down when you know you've got a sustainable delivery of electronics, either through manufacturing or through supply coming from Earth. Okay, so the next one we've got, so that's the drone services. The last thing we've got is things like lamps, small gardens, and so forth, and these you can actually park in. I would say it's definitely worth, if you have space, dropping in the odd garden, but once again, you can probably use them more often. You can probably drop them more often when you actually have a larger dome. So in this case here, we're just going to drop a small fountain because it's a single spot, but we've got one single spot there, so it's actually a bonus that we can drop that fountain in, and it will actually help. So that is all I'm going to do to set up the dome to start off with. So I've left a few squares there. One triangle will, I hope, have a higher residence. Maybe a G tower. The next triangle, maybe I'll start putting in, as my colonists start to breed, probably a nursery and a playground. The school, sorry, and one thing I did leave out is the actual research lab. So I will put the research lab in because I will bring scientists to start off with. And that will take up a square there. And I think that is a nice start. You don't have to fill your dome up straight away. But I think that's a nice start, and then you can always build on that as your resources build up and you make sure. So let's go with that. So we do have the fuel. We're producing 12 units daily, or predicted 12 units daily for the fuel. Starting to refuel. And now that we've built that, we're ready for our first colonists. Let's get our founding colonists. Let's go back. I think we still have one ship ready, the available rockets. Let's bring our passengers. Okay, so selecting your colonists is, I guess, very similar to selecting your areas. Is they'll give you recommendations. They've done some on the age group. So therefore, they've taken children out of the first one, and they've taken seniors in your founders, and I think that is more than fine. We actually want probably more adults to start off with. Specialisation. So the specialisation: scientists, engineers, security, geologists, botanists, and medics. For the first one, I don't want anyone with no specialisation, so I'm just going to turn that off for now. And I probably don't need security, just for the first one. So what we do want is, and I'm going to have to, I apologise, just go back to the map. One thing we forgot to place down was our metals extractor. So let's place that down. So we've got it here, but what I actually want to see, so the metals will be extracted within that area there, so we're fine, that's inside. We'll run a power source up, but what I wanted to see is what it uses. Now I believe it uses geologists, so let's grab that. So passenger rocket, they're still locked in, so that's fine. Floors. So it is already self-selected that it doesn't want chronic conditions, idiots. Now this is also randomized as well, so I don't actually want lazy people. Lazy people, performance is decreased by 20 at all jobs. Chronic conditions, an idiot, a whiner, and a coward. So back. Quirks. We don't want tourists. Doesn't work, leaves at the first opportunity, but we decide to save it. The comfort is high, plus gaming. So we just don't want the tourists to start off with. Obviously, once we've built something bigger, not a problem. So we'll throw a casino in there, we'll bring in tourists, we'll bring in the money. So that gives us 53 to choose from. So let's review them. Going through, so we need to look at it. We need some botanists. To obviously start doing our food. We need a couple of medics. I'm only going to go 2 shifts, so we need 2 medics, a couple of botanists, some geologists for our metal extraction, and a couple of scientists. So let's go with that. So you can go through singly and just quickly pick some. So fit can recover. I'm happy with that. Don't need to go through. We don't need engineers to start off with. A nerd, temporary gaze and round boost every time a new technology is researched. I'm happy to get nerds. Vegan, don't worry. Greatly increased birth rate and another nerd. So it looks like I might need to put it. So that gives me on my 2 geologists. Let's go for a couple of scientists. Hypochondriac. All right. So I'm just going to select a couple of these, and we will be back once we've selected all our characters. All right, welcome back. We've actually got our 12 now. So let's work out what I've selected for this one itself. So I've focused more heavily on botanists and geologists. Geologists to get the metal, botanists to actually create the food. So I just want to make sure I have a sustainable supply of food. So in this case here, I've grabbed 4 botanists. I've grabbed 4 geologists. I've grabbed 2 scientists, and I've grabbed 2 medics. 1 medic for each shift. And that's what we've looked up there. So that's given the 12. Now you can get an increase of colonists to actually come, but once again, that's another research task that they'll actually bring on. So let's hit the launch. It's the same thing that will make its way to Mars, and you can see in the bottom left-hand corner that they'll come along. So we'll speed that up a bit. All right, welcome back. As you can see now, our first founders are now in orbit around Mars. And as you said, it says 119 hours, 118 hours that you need to land the rocket. So if you actually have a sandstorm or a meteorite or something like that, you can put it there for a little bit, but just make sure that obviously you do move them on as quickly as, or bring them down onto Mars so they don't die up in space. The other thing I did just while we were waiting is I did actually just start building the nursery, as much as I don't have kids to start off with, and a playground. Just put it in the space there. It's leaving 3 spaces left, and I'm just going to check those out because what I may end up doing is putting some factories in there. I will definitely do another level of accommodation. So my 12 individuals, the residents only take 14. So as soon as I have 2 children and they become, I guess, adults, they will actually take up those slots quite quickly. So having a look here, refueling. This is not refueled, so I can't take one or have one of these rockets take off. We're going to just have to drop it in the location here. So, all right, let's drop it there. Zoom out, and you can see our Mars landing of our founders. Zoom in, and let's bring it in. Here she comes.
Full of hope and determination, the first founders have set foot on the Red Planet.
All right, so welcome, first founders setting foot on the Red Planet. Now, what it actually does is it stops you bringing any other citizens, I guess, or potential citizens for the next 10 sols. So the founders are here. You need to colonize. You need to make sure that you can show that you've got a sustainable planet before any more citizens are allowed to come. All my ships are here, so we do need to start refueling.
Achieved.
And you can have a look at your milestones. So dropping onto your milestones, you can now see that we'll slowly go through. As soon as we get the fuel, we'll launch our rocket back. Okay, let's go, guys. Where are you? Here they come. Welcome to Mars. Welcome to Mars. So let them come in.
New colonists have arrived.
Once they come in, their jobs are selected as soon as they go through this door. So they'll go in, they will put on their uniforms, which they have according to their jobs. Now you can actually click on them individually, and it will tell you their age, what they are, and where they're working. So workplace is a grocer. If you click on the other ones, such as the white ones, they're probably going to be medics or scientists, and they're in the research lab. The other way is you can click on the research lab, as you got here. We've got 2 scientists. Remember, we brought 4. He's actually hung over. He's actually come all the way over from Mars, and he's hung over. Now, when the ship arrives, it will actually bring over 12 rations to start off with. So you can see the rations actually being dropped into the grocers. We've got a botanist and we've got a geologist working there. In here, we've got a botanist and a botanist, so that's okay. It's still one shift. If we click on the actual dome itself, you can now see the stats. So we've got no unemployed looking for work. We do have 4 vacant work slots because we're only working on single shifts at the moment. We've got 17 disabled work slots, and those disabled work slots are like this. So the third one has actually been disabled. These 2 have been disabled, and we'll go into crops in a second now that we've actually got them. Medics, we're working 2. But that's probably a perfect example, is you could probably remove that off the first shift. Whoops. Probably remove him off the first shift. He was a botanist. And you can probably drop him in there, or you could open up a second shift if you wanted to, but that botanist would actually find a role. Now what you can do, and I probably did that the wrong way, so if I can find that individual, you can actually, if you find you've got someone in the wrong location, so this one's a geologist, and it's producing 7.3. So if you find someone that's just maybe in the wrong job, so you've got unemployed looking for work. Let's bring in that unemployed. So by collecting O, you can actually have a look at here. You've got 1 unemployed, and let's have a look at our unemployed person. So you've got a certain tab, you can click on him, and he's looking for work. So he is a botanist, and let's move him in by selecting this, and then you can tell him to actually work, and that would be his new working location. So he's now, as a botanist, he's going to work in the hydroponic farm, which is exactly where we want him to work. Hitting the O again, you will find that we shouldn't have any unemployed workers now. Okay, so that's our founders. We've got our founders in there. We've got our 12 residents. Capacity is 14, so we can actually we've got our science in there. So if we go down here, we are now getting our research labs is producing an extra 100 points, which is nice. So hopefully that will improve our... and one of the colonists, and I didn't show it before, was actually defined as a genius. So it actually adds an extra 50 research points per tick, or 50 research points per soul for that individual as well. Food-wise, let's just do the last thing, which is now actually going to do the food. So you've actually got 3 rotations of crops. By going through research here, and we did get it, you can build the new farms now, which actually produces food, but it does require more, which works more efficiently. Those are located, once again, by pressing B and on life support, we now have access to this farm. So we're going to build this just so we've got plenty of food, because we will be bringing over some more residents soon. And we can actually have a look at that farm once it's up. So going back to the hydroponics, so by clicking on a select new crop, in this case, because of this is all we've researched, we've got 3 choices. So we've got a good yield but a slow growth, so it takes 4 sols to cycle. What it will do is it will cycle through the crops. You don't have to
Sector scanned.
you don't have to actually pick the crops. You can just leave one and it can keep on going through, but it means that we would get an optimum harvest every 4 sols. The next one is a microgreen, so low yield, slow growth, but requires less water. Now we're not hurting for water at the moment, so we probably don't need this one, but this would be good if you're struggling a little bit on your water. The wheatgrass, low yield but grows very fast. So every sol you would actually get a small element of food. Obviously, for every 1 sol you potentially get 2. For every 4 sols you potentially get 10 here. Okay, so we're just actually going to go for the second one for a little bit of wheatgrass. We don't actually need it, but it will just show the difference as it just keeps on rotating through the stock. Once we've built this one, it will give us obviously different types of food. So we'll just speed this up and we will be back once this is built. Actually, we're just going to be very quick actually. Here we go. All right, let's have a look at this. So once again, we don't have anyone at the moment, and it definitely does take a lot more individuals to manage your farm. Now you could say that maybe turn your hydroponics off and use that space for something else, and that would actually be a very viable option. With your farm itself, once again, if we click on the crops, we've got a couple of choices. We've got wheat, so low yield but grows fast, requires less water. But as you can see there, the farm is certainly smashing out a lot more food, but it does take up an entire triangle. The next one we have is potatoes. A good yield grows slowly but depletes the soil. So remembering, if you do potatoes, your soil is going to get poorer and poorer and poorer, and in return your crops, as you rotate them, are going to become poor as well. But look at the amount of food that produces. And the last thing we've got is soybeans, which, as you can see, it's a low yield, grows slowly, but increases the soil. So what you could potentially say is you could just rotate between soybeans and potato. And that way you can, so soil quality at the moment is 50. We're going to run with a little bit of wheat and soybeans. Let's get that soil quality up, and then we may drop some potato in there, monitoring it to make sure we get it around the 100, or around somewhere between 50 and 100, and then we can rotate that way. We only have 1 individual, so with that 1 individual, that's why our return is actually going to be quite low. Okay guys, I think that was a really good session. So it was just on the domes itself and dome management. We've got our 3 rocket ships there. We're going to stop it there, but we're definitely going to come back for more. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the likes. Don't forget to leave the comments to help me continue with this Let's Play if you want to see some more as we continue on with Surviving Mars. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Surviving Mars, or anything else that I'm actually producing as well. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.